I grew up, if you hear my accent, I have a very little accent. I grew up in Australia. So I have a little bit of Australian accent, but not so much because my parents are American. So I never had a very strong Australian accent.
That'd be good for us.
Yeah, not as strong. So sometimes I would go, let's say I was in Yeshiva, I was in New York, and I want to go back to Australia for Pesach. Now there's a big issue with that. Why? Because if I go over from New York, usually what I do is you go to New York, you travel about 5-6 hours to LA, California. California, you go another 14 hours to Melbourne or to Sydney. What happens is you cross over the dateline. When you cross over the dateline, you skip a day, or when you go the other way, you go back a day. So when is Shavuot? If you cross over the dateline, when is Shavuot? It's a big question. So we have like
when it's short for you.
When it's short for me, I cross the dayline.
Yeah.
I cross the dayline. When should be short?
Everyone else, if you're on the Serena, you have another day.
The question is when.
Yeah.
So let's look at 11 cases. It's a very interesting topic, I think. But there's 11 cases we're going to discuss, and the last one is going to, through understanding these ones, we can understand why Shavuot. What are these 11 cases? Now, case number one, let's say is Yom Tov. Yom Tov, Pesach, Sukkot. When should you keep Yom Tov? You're traveling from California on Yud Tishrei. On Yud Tishrei, you travel from California and you go to Australia. You get to Australia, it's already Yud Aleph. It's already Yud Aleph Tishrei.
It's
Yom Kippur. Okay, so let's.
I don't think so. You'll travel.
Okay, let's do Yud Nissan. Let's keep the Yud Nissan. Yud Nissan. On the 10th day of Nissan, you travel from California to Australia. Do you keep Pesach on the 16th day of the month because you skipped a day, or do you keep it with everybody else in Australia on the 15th? So the answer is simply you keep it with everybody else. You go by the date of the month. In Australia right now, it's Yud Aleph. It's the 11th day of the month, even though you left from California. It's the 10th. Doesn't matter. You go by everybody else. In the calendar, it's the 11th of the month. And when it comes to the 15th, you keep Pesach. And all the laws of Pesach apply to you. You can't eat chametz like everybody else. Next case. What about kavush? Now, the laws of kavush are just, we're not learning smicha now of all the laws, but just very simply, what is kavush? Kavush is a law. Let's say you have something hot. You have something hot. Pig. Pig is fuck. Chazer. Hot. It's hot.
Hot.
It is hate.
Why is it hot?
If it's hot, let's say it's hot, and it touches your cookie, it touches your cake. The cake is not kosher because it's hot. If it's cold, you usually wash it off, and it's okay because cold doesn't go to one another. Only hot does. That's the laws of in kosher in general. Heat makes something kosher or not kosher. There's also milk and meat. If something's hot, that's when it's a big issue. Now there's another law of kavush. Kavush is even if it's cold, if it's for 24 hours, it's as if it was hot. Meaning, if you had a piece of meat fall into milk, a piece of milk fall into milk, that piece of meat becomes as if it was cooked in the milk. If it was waited 24 hours, if it was 24 hours, as if the milk and meat were cooked together, because of the laws of kavush. Kavush is that it absorbs for 24 hours. It's as if it cooked. It absorbs it. Now, 24 hours. Let's say you're going from California to New York. The 24 hours.
Which way?
So let's say you go from California around the world. You're going through the dateline. You're going California.
You go this way, then you go this way.
Yeah, you're going from California. California is here.
Yeah, you go.
And you're going around the dateline. You cross the dateline.
No time.
So you leave Monday. You get there Wednesday in Australia. You leave Monday afternoon. You get to Australia Wednesday morning. That's usually the flight. Now, how many hours passed? Really, 14 hours passed. You go from California to Australia, it's 14 hours only the flight. But in time-wise on the clock, it's about 20 hours past. Much more actually. It's 25 hours past, 30 hours past. So do we say that now? Let's say you had a cup of milk with you that you took onto the plane. And there was a piece of meat that you didn't see in it. And you didn't see the piece of meat in the plane. And now you come to Australia. Do we say, look, 30 on the clock, 35 hours passed? Or do we say, no, 24 hours of actual timing didn't pass? So obviously, what's the halacha? By there, we go by 24 hours has to be actually 24 hours. You have to wait 24 actual hours. We don't say, look, it passed the day. No, 24 actual hours of the meat inside of the milk, as opposed to the first case of, let's say, Pesach. We don't say wait 4 days from Yud Aleph Nisan till Tesvav Nisan till Pesach. No, on the date of the calendar, it's Tesvav. You skip and you join everybody else that today is Tesvav Nisan, the 15th of Nisan. Yeah, so you miss a day for Pesach, and Pesach is a day early for you. Now, what about Shabbat? Case number 3. What about Shabbat? Shabbat is a very difficult one, actually, because in reality, what's the halacha? What do? You follow, if you go to Australia, even though you left on Thursday, when you arrive to Australia, it's already Shabbat. So you can't do that. You have to leave on Wednesday, unless you leave Thursday early morning. But most flights from California to Australia is the afternoon. That's when I grew up, at least. So I think it's the way it still is. So you have to leave on Wednesday. If you're going to Australia, you have to leave Wednesday, and then you end up getting to Australia Friday early morning. Now, Shabbat ends up being now. The question, there's a lot of questions on this. We're not going to get to the answers of this now. There's about 5, 6 different answers that people give. But the question is, let's say it says in the Torah, 6 days work, and on the 7th day should be Shabbat. So why is Shabbat now? You didn't have 6 days. You skipped a day. There's many different answers. And also, let's say Australia. How did Australia ever decide that today was the Shabbat? Why should today be the Shabbat? It's not. When was there 6 days for this 3/7? Who decided that? So that's how we're going to skip all the explanations because it's very difficult and we're not going to have time for that. Now, number 4. Number 4 is the daily prayers. Let's say you wake up. Number 4 is going from LA, Los Angeles to New York. I'm supposed to say New York to Australia. Okay, so let's say you're going from California to New York, Australia to New York. Oh, that's a mistake. It's supposed to be Australia to New York. If you travel, let's try to make this as simple as possible. When you travel from Melbourne, I wake up, I'll tell you what I used to do when I would travel. Melbourne, I would wake up at 6 a.m, daven shacharit. The flight was 11 a.m. I'll fly from Melbourne at 11 a.m. on Monday morning. I'll get to LA, California on Monday at 9 a.m. I'll get to California before I left. Right? Again, one more time. If I leave Melbourne at 11 a.m. in Australia, even though I travel 14 hours, since California is 17 hours back from Melbourne, I get to California before I left in Melbourne. When do I daven shacharit? So I daven shacharit already Monday morning. I get to California. It was dark in the plane. The plane was dark. Do I daven shacharit again? Because I got to California. It was dark on the plane ride, and now it came light again. And what about the other way around? If I went from LA, California on Monday afternoon, I get to New York. I get to Australia Wednesday morning. I skipped shacharit on Tuesday. I skipped the shacharit on Tuesday. What do? How do I make up? Do I do a shacharit while it's dark?
To make up for shacharit. So
do I make up for it, or do I do 2 times when I'm going from Melbourne to LA? So the answer is, which the main song would speak about it is there's a sefer called Shar Muslim Halacha, and there's a sefer called Ligos Moshe or Moshe Feinstein. He talks about it a little bit, and Betzal HaChachma. The third sefer which talks about it is called sefer called Betzal HaChachma, which is obviously written by an Australian Rav. He was the Chassidic Rav of Melbourne community. In Australia, the community is called Adas. So the Rav of that community about 30 years ago, he wrote the sefer called Betzal HaChachma. He talks about a lot of these questions. Yeah. So what's the answer by these things? Is that when you come back to California from Melbourne, you daven shacharit again. Even though it's still Monday, you daven shacharit again for Monday. And we're going to discuss why. What about making up for tefillah? No, you don't have to make up. If you miss the day, you skip the day because from California to Australia, you don't have to make up any tefillah. What about Shil Shal Yom? Which day of the Yom do you say? So you say Monday. Even though you say again Monday. You went from Australia to California, you say again Monday because it's now Monday. Now, number 8. What about when you travel not over the dayline? This is a relevant question for even Europeans. When you go from here to Israel, the fast over here ends at, let's say, 8 o'clock. The fast day, you have a tanit, you have a fast day, and you want to break your fast. The fast over here ends at 8 o'clock. In Israel, it also ends at 8 o'clock. If you travel to Israel, yet the fast is going to be an hour shorter because in Israel it's already an hour later. Right now it's already 11:15, whatever time it is. right? It's 11:20 in Israel now. So do you say no? You have to fast the full fast. You have to continue the Tanit, or do you say no, like your own, or do you follow Israel? You arrived in Israel on the fast day. Do you follow Israel? So the Igros Moshe Feinstein, he discusses it, and he answers, no, you follow Israel. You could have a shorter fast. So if you want a quicker fast, now you go to Israel, you travel somewhere, and then you have a quicker fast.
You travel in the morning.
It's a good idea, right? You travel. Some people don't like the idea, but because you have to be careful. But also on the plane, you always want to drink.
Don't go to the north of Norway then.
Don't go to north of Norway. No.
You get fasted 3 days.
You can skip them.
Yeah, technically you can skip. You can skip a fast.
To Israel. And
Yeah,
then
you can sort of skip a fast. Nearly. You go from California to Australia. You could sort of skip a fast. There could be a few hours where you're not sure, so you would have to keep. But most days, most of the hours you're never sure is not a fasting. Not a fast, so you don't have to.
Yeah.
So that's another one. What about number 9? Is the time for Shema, Chatzot, Shachrit? Do you go by, because Shema is 3/12 of the day. We divide the day into 2. Chatzot Laila, Chatzot Yom, half day, half night. Do we 3/12 of the day is you have time to say Shema. 3 hours of the 12 hours is the time of Shema. 4 hours of the 12 hours is the time for Shacharit, and 6 hours is the time for Chatzot. I mean, yeah, no,
12 hours.
12. Yeah, the 12 hours is Chatzot. Sorry. No. 6 hours. 6 hours is Chatzot. Yeah, 6 hours is Chatzot, because the next 6 hours you could do the Mincha after waiting half an hour approximately. Yeah. So yes, after 6 hours is Chatzot. So 3 hours is Shema. 4 hours is Shacharit Shmona Esrei Amidah, and 6 hours is Chatzot. Now, when do those hours go by? If you're traveling, if you're even to Israel, or especially if you're going from Australia to California through the Dateline. So, number 10 and 11 is going to get a little more interesting. Number 10 is a Brit Milah. A Brit Milah. This one, we have to try to focus. It's a little difficult, but we're going to try to get there. The Brit Milah. A baby is born on Monday in California. On Monday in California. When do we usually do the Brit Milah? On Monday the next week in California. If this baby goes to Australia, from California to Australia, when do you count the 8 days? Do we say he does it on Monday? Or do we say he does it on Wednesday morning? Because if you wait the 7 days plus the time change, ends up being Tuesday night. And then so you have to wait till Wednesday morning for it to be the 8th day of the child.
I would say you follow the baby.
Follow the baby. Okay. So the answer is that's the simple answer. Yeah, you follow the baby. So how do we explain all these things? So what do we see from here? Sometimes let's discuss it. Let's discuss the main points. There's different ways of looking at time. There's something we're going to use the word, as I wrote on the paper, zaman and tarikh. What's zaman? Zaman means time. The time passes by. You need time to pass by. Then there's tarikh. Tarikh means date. The date on the calendar. Let's say the case of kavlish again. Going to case number 2, the case of kavlish, that you have a piece of meat of chazer or any meat that's sitting in a glass of milk for 24 hours. We go by zman. We want zman. We need 24 hours to pass. 24 hours of actual time on the clock. 24 hours on the clock. If you don't change your clock, as opposed to Pesach, we go by tarikh. We go by the date on the calendar. Right now, we don't care that it wasn't 6 months from Sukkot. The fact is, it's 6 months minus the day. But in Australia, on the day on the calendar in Australia, it is Tet Vav Nisan. Therefore, it's Pesach. We don't care that by you, it used to be, it would, if you're still in California, it would be your Dalit. It doesn't matter. Let's think of this case to summarize it. If you say, we're going to come together and say Tehillim, everybody come, the whole world, all the Jews of the world, there's something unfortunate in Israel, all the Jews together want to come and say Tehillim. At 6 p.m., Yud Daled, what's today? Let's do it today. Yud Iyar. On Yud Iyar, 6 p.m., 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Everybody's come together and say Tehillim. Now, what do? Do you say that in Australia, it's already 6 p.m. Right now, in Australia, it is 6:20. Yeah, think it's 8 hours now. Depends on the time change. Right now it's 8 hours ahead in Melbourne. In Melbourne it's 8 hours ahead. Right now it's 6:25. Should they already start saying Tehillim? Because we're saying 6 p.m. on Yud Iyar, on the 10th day of Iyar. Should they already start saying Tehillim? And then we're going to do it in 8 hours. And in California, they're only going to do it in 9 hours. Are they going in California in 9 hours? Or do we say, no,
I have a question about this.
one second. Okay. Or do we say that right now in Australia at 6 p.m. they're saying Tehillim? That means for us we should already be saying Tehillim, and in California they should also be saying Tehillim, because right now the time is everybody is saying Tehillim. What do we go by?
Nice
question.
For that. One of my neighbors is very Chabadnik, and they say, well, if everybody should daven at the same time and say Shema, then the Mashiach will come. Now, if you go in this way, is the Mashiach coming in different stages?
Good question.
You see in Australia earlier or later than in other. I mean, what's the meaning of that saying? Then if everybody davens at the same time, because Baruch has one time, or not?
Oh, that's exactly our question. That's exactly our discussion. Do we say, well, to make an easier question, what about Shabbat? It says if the whole world keeps the Shabbat, one Shabbat, it says in the Gemara, one Shabbat, everybody, all the Jews in the world keep, Mashiach is going to come. And that's why they try to make once a year, there's these organizations that make everybody keep Shabbat, all these things. If only every single Jew would do it, unfortunately not every Jew joins, but if every Jew would join, when is Mashiach coming? When Australia finishes the Shabbat, or when Europe finishes the Shabbat, or when California finishes the Shabbat? A good question. Yeah, so these questions Mashiach will answer.
That is why we say God's will is not dependent on time.
Yeah, Hashem, God's time is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's time is different than us. Okay, so like this. Yeah, so what do we say? If everybody wants to say, when should we say the Tehillim? Does it go by the Tarikh, which means what's Tarikh? Going back to those two terms, Tarikh and Zman. If you go by Tarikh, means the date on the calendar, you have to wait till 6 p.m. on Yud Iyar. So we shouldn't do it. Yet in Australia, they should already do it, but we shouldn't do it. Yeah. If you go by Zman, the time in the world, 24 hours passing, the time in the world, then right now is that time that everybody should be saying Tehillim, because everybody right now is living in the same, where time is passing by for everybody the same. It could be on the calendar, it's different by them and then different by somebody else, but it's the same in time-wise, time passing by. Right now is a holy time in the world. Let's say Tehillim, right? So what do we go by? So that's a good example to understand that there's something called Tarikh, date, and Zman, time. Now, so going back to the cases that we talked about, by the Yom Tov Pesach, we go by Tarikh, the time on the calendar. Kavush, we need 24 hours for the meat to be in the milk, to be considered as if it was cooked inside of the milk. Shabbat, we go by the date on the calendar. And again, that's a complicated one, exactly when they started in Australia, how they decided that today should be Shabbat, but that's how it is. What about Tefillah, the prayers?
Yeah, go.
Okay, what about the prayers? By prayers, we spoke about the Shacharit. You traveled from Australia, from Melbourne, Australia on Monday morning. You get to California 14 hours later. It's even earlier before you left. What do we say? We don't. What's the answer? You daven Shacharit again. Why? Because we don't care. We don't care what we don't look at that. Was it? We don't look at the fact that you daven Shacharit Monday already. We look at was there night and was there day. Was there night and was there day? Meaning, since there was a night already, what's Shacharit dependent on? Shacharit is dependent on that there was a nighttime and there's a daytime. This is the third thing, the day and night. Was there? Yeah.
That's a question. If I know that I will daven Shacharit in another country later, and I have Shacharit now, you will do it twice.
Yeah.
So you can have a question about cover now, but also have a question about skipping. You know that you're going there. It's your personal. So there's a personal time and a daytime. The personal time, I should do it now. The calendar time is I can do it then. So because I have to do Shacharit there because I follow the local time. So is there an hierarchy in personal time, like for a Brit Mila? Or is it just you always have to follow wherever you are the local time, because that's what people do. Even if you go to a minyan Because it's sorry, I'm part of me, but I don't have to do it. You can stand with shachrit, but you don't have to do it. So what is the
good question? That's exactly what we're explaining. That's exactly what we're going to come to answer. Do we go by the place? Do we go by the place, or are you going by yourself? That's exactly what we're answering now.
You can skip at home your shachrit, and
that's
if you
what
arrive,
we'll do
if you arrive somewhere,
Right.
then
Good question. That's exactly what we're looking to answer.
What is
So that's what we're answering. That's why I'm not going to make it up.
How do you go personal?
Yeah. Okay, so that's the answer. Is depends on what case it is. So by the daily prayers, go now to the daily prayers. When does a person need to pray shacharit? It goes by the person. That when you wake up and it's light in the day, you have to pray shacharit. When you travel, it's going to get dark very quick. When you go from Melbourne, Australia to California, it gets dark very, very quick. You have to make sure you also daven mincha before it gets dark. You don't want to daven too early because it might be light still. It might be shacharit time. You want to daven, you see it's getting dark. You quickly daven mincha, and you also quickly daven ma'ariv when it gets dark because it could get light very quick. It gets light very quick. It doesn't, because the time is going very quick. So by shacharit, when is a person obligated shacharit? It goes by the person. It came day, you have to daven shacharit. In Melbourne, Australia, before you leave Melbourne, Australia to California, you have to daven shacharit. When you go into the plane and it gets dark, right now you daven ma'ariv because right now it's dark. We don't care that you daven already. We don't care what day you daven. You have obligation that when it's dark, you daven ma'ariv. You have an obligation when it's light, you daven shacharit. Now it comes light again in California. You touch down in California. Just before you touch down, it gets light very quickly. It's 9 a.m. when you arrive there, so it only just got light, and it happened very quick. When you get there, you touch down, you daven shacharit again. Which Shel Yom you do Mondays. Why by Shel Yom you do Monday? Because then we're going by Tarikh. The calendar right now in California is Monday. But by the which tefillah you do, which prayer do you do? That we go by day and night. There's something called day and something called night. The night passed, it's shacharit time. Who cares that you already daven shacharit? Who cares? The night passed. There was a night. Now it's daytime. You daven shacharit. So that's how. Yeah, it's an interesting one. But
you can also see it on the contents of the tefillot because shacharit is when it's getting light, and ma'ariv is when it's getting dark.
Yeah. So. But we don't say that you daven shacharit on Monday already. You shouldn't daven shacharit again in California, even though it's Monday, because it's again Monday.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not explaining here how the Dateline works. I hope everyone understands the Dateline. Right. Everyone, you understand how the Dateline works? Mm-hmm. The Dateline, right? Because we need somehow there needs to be a place. There needs to be a place, and when you travel from Australia, we have to know somewhere. It skips to right over here. Right over here. If you go to New York, which is over here. There has to be somewhere. You can't go back 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. There's time keeps going. You can't keep where does the day change? So right over here is where they put the Dateline. Some people, there were rabbis that didn't agree to this. There were rabbis that said the Dateline is right here on the end of Australia. Therefore, you can't travel from Australia on Sunday either, because the second you leave Australia, it's back to Shabbat. But the general custom of most of the world was what most of the rabbis in Israel, this was many years ago, they decided, they came together, is the Dateline's about here. So when you travel from Australia on Sunday, you have quite a few hours still that it's still Sunday. And it's so late on Sunday already that by then it's already Shabbos by night. It's already after Shabbat. Even though it gets dark, it goes back to Saturday after it comes back to Shabbat after you cross the Dateline over here, but it's already dark, so it's already Motzei Shabbat. So then it's not a problem.
Is that followed?
That's just about everybody follows. Not every single one, but nearly everybody follows that the Dateline's about over here. Nearly everybody follows that. So yeah, so they have to switch somewhere. So even though the day switched, who cares? It came day, it came light. We don't care that it went back to Monday, right? We don't care about that. Okay. Yeah, so by the prayers, we don't care that the day passed, that the whole day passed. We care that there was a night and there was a day. Once there was a day, you daven ma'ariv. Once there was a night, you daven shacharit. We don't care whether 24 hours passed, whether there was a zaman, as we said. Then there was a 24 hours of time actually passing. Now,
so if you have a slow plane, you have to daven only one prayer.
If it's a slow plane,
it's always in the same.
It's always in the same place, yeah. For prayers, always, yeah. For prayers, you're always going to be in the same place if you're following the sun.
Nice revenge.
Take it.
Yeah, always want to pray your whole life. It's gonna be really complicated with the festivals. Yeah. So now,
Maybe it's crazy.
But
Yeah,
it's the
it gets
plane
very
that you go by boat. There's another problem. I think so.
At the same time.
yeah.
It's incredible. Now,
So now, what about, let's say, same thing as Israel to America, let's say for a fast day. We don't care how many hours of the clock went by. So you were supposed to fast 12 hours till 8 p.m. We don't care. Again, we don't care what time, how many hours went by. We care there is a nighttime, the fast is over. The Tanit is completed because it's night. So this is a very important part. This is number 3 of day and night. We go by, is it daytime or is it nighttime? Is it Nacht of Dach? Now, okay, let's go to the Brit Milah one, and through that we're going to get to the Shavuot. By understanding the Brit Milah good, we can answer the Shavuot. Now, 3 babies are born at the exact same time.
local time, different places. No, but
Right now, right this second, 3 women on the WhatsApp. Now you have WhatsApp. Everyone says on their status, Mazel Tov, I had a baby. I had a baby boy. Mazel Tov. Everyone at this moment, you look at your phone, 3 different family groups, someone had a baby. Mazel Tov. Exact right now, at this moment. It's possible that these 3 babies are 3 different Brit Milah times. Exactly. Why? One is born in Melbourne right now. One is born in Melbourne on Monday afternoon. When's the bris? Monday.
In Melbourne.
In Melbourne. The bris is Monday on Melbourne.
You say where?
Yeah, in Melbourne. One baby was born in New York. Right now, it's Sunday night still. So when's the Brit Milah? On Monday in New York time.
Yeah.
That's going to be 12 hours, a bit more after the Melbourne one. Then we have the one that's born in California or New York, and the baby traveled to Melbourne, Australia for the Brit Milah. When's the Brit Milah? Do we say, we said in the beginning of the class, we need 7 complete days. And on the 8th day is the Brit Milah.
Yeah,
now,
a complete day, is that up to the personal time, or is it just the calendar time?
So that's what we're saying. That's exactly what we're discussing.
I understand. So you can have these 3 babies on totally different, almost 24 hour difference.
Yeah.
Almost 24 hours.
The Brit Milah is different. Yeah. So why?
Yeah.
Because the one in Australia is going to be on Monday morning.
Yeah.
The one in New York, the one that was born in New York, is going to have the Brit Milah also on Monday morning because it's 7 hours, but it's 12 hours later. So 12 hours later, the one in New York is. Then the one that was born in New York or California, and they travel to Australia for the Brit Milah, you need 24 hours. You need it to be day and night 7 times. 24 hours. You need it to be a day time and a night time of 24 hours. You need. Let's say. Oh, no, like this. No. You need 7 shkiot to pass. You need 7 times that it comes shkia. It comes nighttime. It comes nightfall. 7 times that it comes nightfall, and on the 8th day is going to be the Brit Milah. So if the baby is born right now in California, it's right now Sunday evening. You need the whole Sunday. You need the whole Monday to pass is 1 day. The Tuesday to pass is the 2nd day. Wednesday to pass is the 3rd day. If they traveled on Wednesday to Australia, they get to Australia on Thursday afternoon. Now, if they traveled on Wednesday morning, they get to Australia on Thursday afternoon. They miss that shkia, that means. So now they have Friday. Based on the counts, they end up having the 7 days is completed only on Tuesday evening. Because the 7 days complete on Tuesday evening, the Brit Milah is going to be on Wednesday morning. So again, the baby that was born in New York and is now traveled to Melbourne, Australia for the Brit Milah, they need 7 shkiyot, 7 night times to come. And that's going to be only on Tuesday evening. So then the Brit Milah is going to be on Wednesday morning. So it ends up being that the Brit Milah of New York, of Australia, is 12 hours first, 12 hours ahead of the one in New York. and the one in New York is going to be 12 hours ahead of the one that was born, the other one that was born in New York, because the Brit Milah and they end up going to Australia and end up being nighttime before they did Brit
I have a
Milah.
philosophical question.
Yeah.
Why is the skier connected to a baby? I mean, why is the skier the way of determination? Why?
Because when do we decide that a
What is
day
the
pass?
purpose of skiing?
Right. So Shkia, the day ends. Let's say the baby is
No,
born
I
at
know,
6
I
in the
know.
morning.
Yeah, I
Let's say the day
understand.
is born at
And
2 p.m.
Why should the skier be a measure for a reason?
Because that's how the Torah decides.
Okay, then if it is right.
No, it's not just it's not just because Torah had to decide when does the day end. I mean, if the baby is born at 2 p.m. or the baby is born at 6 in the morning or 6 in the afternoon, 6 in the morning or 6 in the afternoon, the baby will still be the Brit Milah is on the same day.
May I ask a doctor a question?
Okay.
Is the blood constitution different at night or in daytime from a person?
No, but I think it has to do with the fact that we don't.
And because you have to, it's for the health of baby. It should be a healthy baby and so on. So is the health different on the 7th day or at the 9th day of a baby?
Well, I think here it has to do with the fact that we don't do breathing during the night. So it should be on daytime. You have to see.
Okay.
You have to
Actually,
see what you're
there's
doing.
one thing I made a mistake is that the Brit is going to be on Tuesday.
yeah,
and
Tuesday,
it's not
okay.
Wednesday.
We
Not Wednesday.
understand
Monday
that.
and Tuesday.
Yeah,
Yeah, not
It
Wednesday.
can't be 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was talking about the health stage
The
of
health
the baby.
ways. Yeah, health
If you
ways.
do it too early, if you do it too late, it's very bad. But if it's skiing is not a medical thing or something.
No, the
No.
Torah says 8 days. Is that a medical reason that the Torah says 8 days?
But you don't do a breathing after skiing. I think that has to do with it.
Well, that has to do with the time wise. So in New York, the one that was born in New York has to wait 12 hours because it has to wait till the morning. The one who was born in Melbourne was born already in the afternoon or the morning, so you do it right away. And then 8 hours exactly on the 8th day, you do the Brit Milah. The one that was born in California, 8th day starts only on Monday evening, so you have to wait till Tuesday morning to do the bris because it's in Australia. It's already Monday evening. It's going to be only Monday evening, so you have to wait till Tuesday morning. So why on the Torah do we wait 8 days for the Brit for the health wise? I'm not sure if that's the reason.
I don't know.
I think the Torah waits you because it has to be healthy. You can't do it right away. I think why. That's why. But I'm not sure if the 8th day is the healthiest. I don't think that's.
I don't know, but zij zeggen dat van de bloedconstitutie dat het baby gaat die extra bloeden voor als hij jong is. Die doet het niet met 4 dagen.
Je wilt natuurlijk wel weten of die baby gezond is.
Precies. En dan is de vraag is als je het te vroeg doet, is het dan kan je zeggen, ja, we stellen het altijd uit. Dat is geen probleem.
Maar als je het vroeg, dan weet je niet wat het probleem is. Kijk, er zijn natuurlijk kinderen met een aangeboren hartgebrek. En die zullen bijvoorbeeld die blauwe lippen krijgen als ze drinken.
Ja. Dus met andere woorden,
dat moet je wel een keer gezien hebben.
Ja, dat kan je in die tijd. That's just a question.
Het heeft ook te maken met het geel zijn van een kind. Kijk,
ja, precies. Ja, ik weet het.
Ja, maar het geel, wat was de reden van het geel zijn? Ja, maar het geel zijn, dat heeft te maken met de rhesusantagonisme.
Ja.
Als de moeder en de baby een andere rhesusfactor hebben, dan krijg je dus na de geboorte dat die bloedcellen gaan kapot. Dus dan krijgt een baby een ernstige bloedarmoede. En daardoor wordt die baby geel.
Dus krijg je een bloedtransfusie.
Wordt dan een blauwe lamp gelegd.
What's interesting is when the baby is yellow, this is another thing, another topic now. But when the baby is yellow, most doctors actually are okay with the Brit Milah. The Torah says no. Depends how yellow it is. Depends on Silver City and then depends on the doctor and depends how yellow. But according to the Torah, we're more strict with yellow than doctors are. That I was going through a lot of Shabbat. You see the Shabbat of different, like I guess Moshe, Minchas Yitzchak, all these people have Shabbat, big Shabbat about the whole Brit Milah situation. They are so the Torah says don't do it if it's yellow. True, the doctors say okay, no. Also, but then the other way around. When the doctors say don't do Brit Milah with the Priya and it's all those things, but Torah says it's okay, so you must do it. So it goes both ways. When Torah says it's safe, it's safe. When the Torah says it's dangerous, it's dangerous. Even though the doctors say different, not always it fits with the Torah and the doctors exactly. But that's a side point.
Yeah, it's a difficult point, I think. But I think the baby should be healthy enough to undergo Brit Milah.
Yeah, for sure. So everyone,
Most the mole decided, not the doctor.
Yeah, the mole. But the thing is, moles are usually more strict.
I know.
Yeah. From what I've seen and what I've learned in the Shabbat, a lot of times these rabbis that wrote these long thing, a lot of times the doctor said it was okay, but the Mohel said it wasn't yet. That happens a lot.
And he was right.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay, so now to
Yeah,
the
sorry,
main.
I think when a baby is yellow, till it becomes all right, then you have to wait another 3 days, I think.
Yeah, so it depends. It depends. Sometimes you have to wait 3 days. Sometimes you can do it the next day, and sometimes you have to wait a complete 7 days. And on the 8th, that you do it again. Depends on how sick it was, and depends to what level. Yeah, it's really, it's a long topic. It's hard to discuss everything now, but yeah, I looked into it a little bit, but yeah, it's a long thing. Depends. Usually 3 days. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Okay, so now let's get to our point of what we're discussing with Shavuot.
Is it Zman or is it?
Now, is it Zaman or is it Tarikh? Zaman means you want 24 hours to pass. Tarikh means you go by the date on the calendar. Or do you go by day and night? Is it Shkia? Did Shkia happen? Is it the next day? Now, when you go from California to Australia, you miss, if you go Monday afternoon, you get to Australia Wednesday morning. That's the way it is. You leave Monday afternoon, you get to Australia Wednesday morning. You miss Tuesday Shkia. You leave, let's say, Yud Iyar, you get to Australia Yud Bet Iyar. You missed the Shkia of Yud Aleph Iyar, of the 11th day of Iyar. You only get to the 12th of Iyar one. Now, it says in the Torah, "V'tisbu chamishim yom." You have to count 50 days. It never says in the Torah, keep Shavuot on the 6th day of. It never says keep Shavuot on the 6th day of Sivan. It says on the count 49 days. On the 50th day is Shavuot. So therefore, what do we see from here? Shavuot is dependent on counting 49 shkiyot. When it comes to shkiyah, you have an obligation to count Svirah of that day. Whether you count it or not, the day happened. So if you forgot to count that day, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, for you, that day passed. The shkiyah passed. So for you, it's the 2nd day of the Omer. For you, it's the 10th day of the Omer. Even if you weren't there, I mean, you forgot to count it. You fall asleep and you forgot to count. It doesn't matter. 10 shkiyot passed for you, so it's a 10th day. 11 shkiyot passed, it's 11th day. It's a 12th day. We don't care that you forgot to count. That doesn't matter. But what's important is that 12 shkiyot passed for you. When you go from California to Australia, you are going to be missing one of the shkiyot. Therefore, Shavuot should be for you not on Vav Sivan. It should be for you on Zion Sivan. On Zion, because you need 49 shkiyot, you need to wait an extra day. Even though in Australia everyone's keeping Shavuot on Vav, you only keep Shavuot on Zion, technically. And then the other way around. What happens when you go from Australia to California? You got an extra shkia because you left, and now when you left, it came night again on the plane, and it came Monday again. You left on Monday, it came Monday again, and it came night on the plane. You should keep Shavuot on Hey Sivan, not on Vav, not on the 6th day. We should keep Shavuot on the 5th day of Sivan. So, based on this logic, well, I just like the Brit Milah. What do we say about the Brit Milah? We don't care that 24 hours passed. We don't care that it's on the calendar. Okay, usually you were born, the baby was born in Yud. The Brit Milah was in Yuchet on the 18th. No, we go by that. We need 7 complete shkiyot to pass. On the 8th day is the Brit Milah. So too of it with Shavuot. We want 49 shkiyot to pass, and on the 50th day is Svir. Now, based on this logic, based on this understanding, why does this make sense? That Shavuot could be on Hey and Zayin, because you see, even the time of the Gemara or Shulchan Aruch even says, it says in the Gemara Shulchan Aruch that Shavuot can be on Hey Sivan. Why? Let's say the month of Iyar is 29 days. Let's say this year, when they counted by the moon, right? These days we have a calendar, but when they used to have the Mekadosh al Pi Hariyah, they would sanctify Rosh Chodesh based off they saw the new moon. Then it could be there'll be 30 days in the month of Iyar, right? It wasn't so set. Then it says in the times of the Gemara that Shavuot could be on Hey Sivan. So we already see such a topic, such a concept that Shavuot is not dependent on date of calendar. What is dependent on date of calendar? Zaman Matan Torah Seno. The time of the giving of the Torah, that happened on Vav Sivan. But not Shavuot. Shavuot could be on 5 Sivan. The time of the Torah giving was on 6 of Sivan, Vav Sivan. The time of Shavuot for you could be 5 Sivan. Why? Because the Torah says Shavuot is only after 49 days counting, and then on the 50th day.
What about the business traveler who goes in during 49 days of the Omer, goes to and fro, but always
Comes back.
Can always skip or have an extra skill.
Nee.
Should he postpone 5 days for Shavuot?
No, it goes the other way around.
Because this, he goes, he does it so very fast playing. So theoretically, because he does that, he passes always. He doesn't have to have a skill. So he stays at the same day. So he can skip 5 days of the Yom or even 10 days of the Yom. So
I'm not sure if that's a possible case. This is a very normal case. This happens all the time.
I know, because that's normal because you don't travel and not that way. But you were talking about traveling, so you can skip many days. Right?
Yeah. So, but let's say. So this gets an issue. So some people would say don't make issues.
Exactly.
Follow everybody else. Keep Shavuot and Vav.
Exactly. Yeah.
The Rabbi's opinion, he said no. Based on this logic, Shavuot should be on Hey Sivan. If you go from Australia to California, Shavuot is going to be on Hey on the 5th day. Why does this make sense? What we said before, because Shavuot, according to the Gemara, could be on Hey Sivan. Hang on a second. Now, if you would travel after Pesach from California to Australia, but then before Shavuot you would travel back, then you're good. Because you keep a different spirit. Every night when you go to Shul, they are going to today is the 20th day of the Omer. And you say, no, today's 21, which is fine. You could do that. You do it quietly, obviously. You don't want to make a big deal. But then you travel back, then it's fine because Shavuot will end up being the same day. But if you travel from Australia, let's say you go home. I went home from New York to Australia for Pesach. That was before the Omer started. Now I'm going back from New York, from Australia. I'm going back to Yeshiva in New York. I'm going to cross the dateline. I should keep Shavuot on Hey and Vav. Instead of Vav and Zion, I should keep on Hey and Vav. So what do? I'll tell you what I did. I didn't travel to the dayline. I went from Australia. Instead of traveling around the world through the dayline, crossing the dayline over here, I went from Australia. I went to Abu Dhabi. I went to Abu Dhabi. From Abu Dhabi to New York. New York side over here. Abu Dhabi. Another time, what I did it a few times. Another time, I went from Melbourne, Australia. I went to Singapore. Where's Singapore? Somewhere. Singapore is around here. I went to Singapore. I went to Frankfurt, Germany, Frankreich. And then I went from Frankreich to New York. So then I'm not crossing the dateline. That's fine. I'm keeping the exact same short. So that's why it's a longer flight. It ends up being about 32 hours. It ends up being about, well, if you're doing to Abu Dhabi, it's 14 hours to Abu Dhabi and 14 hours back to Australia, back to New York. So 28 hours of traveling plus the stop. Ends up being about 32 hours.
Question.
Yeah, so that's a question.
One shoe in a certain place.
Yeah.
And one has the shoes of the kids. One has the majority of this. What are you doing? You need it for the meeting.
Okay.
What are you governing?
Good question. So what are you doing? So like this, you might say, a person might say, how dare you? There's a halacha. There's a halacha.
You go the other way around.
The local rabbi
You miss
said,
If you're good.
You go the other way around. Then you miss a day.
Yeah.
If you want to be a bishop,
Yeah, if you're missing Kippur, yeah. No, but obviously you have to be careful because in the air, some part of the time might be on Kippur. You don't know exactly when. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. But if you go to Israel, then you know clearly the fast will end when you get to Israel.
I flew once back from New York to Amsterdam, and I was she was with Tammuz, and I asked, and it was in the time of Moshe Feinstein. He said you have to fast until you are above a land where it's night.
Right.
yeah.
Then you have a shorter time.
Yeah. Yeah, but Moshe, in English, Moshe discussed it. Yeah.
My question is, you have 8 local
So that's
people of Armenia. And one has got the 5th, and other one has got the 7th, and you are needed for the minyan. What is the shul doing?
He can daven his own shach.
So there's a halacha in general. There's a halacha that you're not supposed to separate from the congregation. If everybody's keeping Shavuot on Vav, how could you keep Shavuot on Zion on the 7th day? So the answer would be, that would be true if you're being different than everybody else. If everybody keeps Shavuot on Vav because today's 50th day, you're also doing the 50th day. Is Shavuot. By you, that's Zion though. So it's not that you're doing different than everybody else. You're doing the exact same thing. You're waiting till the 50th day to keep Shavuot. So you're not separating from the congregation. Now, what's the halacha? So some people would say, as I said, some people say follow everybody else. But as I said, the Chabad Rebbe and others, they said that we should not do this because you're getting really complicated. Because maybe you should keep Shavuot on Hey, because the Gemara says you could and Shulchan Aruch says you could. So therefore, in reality, people that do it, they're actually supposed to, let's say on Hay, they actually do Lane the Aseret that they brought on Hay Sivan, because it's Shavuot for you. Now, in this way, it gets complicated, but you can't say Zaman Matan Torah Seno. You can't say now is the time of the Torah, because the Torah was given on Vav, but it's Shavuot, but it's not Zaman Matan Torah Seno. So, regards going back to these days, regards to Zaman time-wise, Shavuot is going to be, you need a day and night 49 times. Shavuot is on Hay or on Zion, on the 5th day of Sivan or the 7th day of Sivan. With regards to time, Tarikh, date of the calendar, that is the Man Matan Torah. Today is the day that the Torah was given. That you could only say on Vav and Zion because it's 2-day Shavuot. But you can't say that on 5 Sivan, Hay Sivan. You can't say that on Chet Sivan if you're doing the next 2 days. So you keep Shavuot, but you don't say Zman Matan Torah. That's what's complicated about. So that is based of that. We don't say that, look, why are you doing different? Because you're not doing different. You're doing the same as everywhere else. You're waiting for 49 days to pass and you're doing it on the 50th. Yeah, what was your question?
No, you can't skip in your prayer. It's a man.
Technically, you could.
Exactly.
You would.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when you say, let's say, Chag Pesach, Zaman Cheiroteno, because this is when God freed us. Hashem comes Baruch freed us. We say on Sukkot, Zman Simchatenu, because now today's the time of Simcha. But you can't say Zman. You actually skip. You would skip it if you do this. So therefore, you should avoid it. You shouldn't cross the date line between Pesach and Shavuot because it gets complicated. If you do, you should travel back before Shavuot. Or what best is to do, which what I did, is you travel the long way around the world, a little longer. End up being an extra like 6 hours of flying. But this is the best thing. And if you travel through the date line, then technically you have to keep Shavuot.
Count your hours. You have to count your see. What time shall I be there? What time shall I be there? What shall I be there? Otherwise, anyway, it's 1 day.
Yeah, the day passes. You're going to end up being Shavuot a little bit different. So that's the Now, so the halacha gets complicated. You have to ask your Rav for each case. But usually they say if you will keep Shavuot on, let's say Hay on Vav, Hay, which is the day before Shavuot. You keep Shavuot on Hay, Vav, and Zayin. You have like 3 days because you're not allowed to do Malacha. You end up doing 3 days because you're not allowed to do Malacha. Even though for you the 3rd day is not Shavuot anymore, you're not allowed to do Malacha in public. That's also because that's Mars Ayin and all these things. The only thing you have to do is to fill in, but in private because you have to. Not only because you have to. But that's the only thing. Everything else you have to keep private. But that's that's basically the idea of it. It gets complicated. There's a lot more details. But that's the general view of how Shavuot crossing the dayline.
Very nice.
Very nice. Very interesting.
I can keep this. Huh?
Yeah.
Don't travel on Shavuot.
Don't travel on Shavuot either.
Yeah, at the same time, the same thing. If you we went on Erev Pesach to America because it is. 6 hours earlier. So this was the time of the Singapore Airlines, a very good airline.
I know.
So we started here and we got a breakfast, kosher breakfast in the plane. A few hours later, it was here already 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
But we were in the it was 9 o'clock. So they gave us an
I'm not there.
I
see I'm not there.
Singapore Airlines.
So it's changed.
Nee, goed.
Fantastisch. Have any questions? You could always, I wrote my email about if you want to ask.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
It's an interesting topic, I thought. And this week is
Ik ben nou even buitenshuis. Ik zal er straks staken.